the favorite at 2 to
He's
1.
a terrible bet
On
at 3 to
paper.
1.
I love the odds of 8.
So who are we all
It's
picking?
this field that is not a good bet.
They're off.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer for Breeders' Cup Focus. In this edition, we're going to take a look at the main contenders for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. But before we do, I want to remind you about the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge being held at Del Mar November 1st and the 2nd. Look at that cash prize pool, $1.25 million, just waiting for you in the BCBC Betting Challenge. Register today, breederscup.com/BCBC. And of course, good tickets still available for the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar. Head on over to breederscup.com for more information. Let's take a look at Daily Racing Form's top 10 list for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, ranked in odds order, very preliminary morning line odds set by Daily Racing Form's Brad Free. National Treasure, 4 to 1 on the morning line. Just missed last time out in the California Crown. I want to watch this race, Mike. This is at 1 1/8. And National Treasure got the lead, and that's always been key for him. When he gets the lead, he seems to be much better than when he's on the chase. It looks like he's got these horses at his mercy at the 3/16 pole, but he just can't handle the much improved Subsanador. Were you disappointed by this loss?
A little disappointing. He's going to lose it in a three-way photo here, Dan. But he just felt like he had all the best of it here. Sort of loose on the lead, not taking any real pressure. It just feels like the good National Treasure is supposed to win that race, and for whatever reason, he didn't. That being said, we know that he's better than that. He's got a better race than that to get to. It feels like shorter is better for this horse. I don't know if you agree with that. I think the mile is probably his optimum distance, and he ran great in this race last year.
One of the major keys for National Treasure in this race is whether Skippy Longstocking goes here in the Classic. I believe his first preference might be the Breeders' Cup Classic. Skippy Longstocking has speed, and he could keep National Treasure busy up front.
Well, he could. That's certainly something to consider, Dan. I mean, his best races are also when he's more forward. He also ran in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last year at Santa Anita. He also ran really, really well in that race, sort of an underrated performance, but he wasn't as fast as National Treasure that day. And all he could do was chase, and he just wasn't quite good enough. I wonder if they run him here, if he'd be in for more of the same.
Here's an up-and-comer in the division, Mike Mufasa, coming off of a win in the Vosburg, going 7/8 of a mile at Belmont at the Big A. We're going to take a look at Mufasa's performance right now. He showed excellent tactical speed in this race, parked himself just off the lead, makes the front at the 3/16, draws off to win as much the best. Now, this is not the strongest field in the world he's facing. He'll have the strongest class test of his career in the Breeders' Cup, but he's coming into this race in very good form for a very good trainer in Nacho Correas.
It's going to be interesting to see how he classes up too, because his last two races, his first start over here off the layoff when they sprinted him, it seemed like a race that he really needed, Dan. His last two races are so much improved that I do think it makes him a little bit of an interesting horse in there. He's a very handy horse, and each of his last two starts, he was confidently ridden until it was time. And then when they asked him to go, he settled it quickly both times.
It's likely we've already seen the best race from a horse like National Treasure or Skippy Longstocking. I'm not sure that's the case for Domestic Product, a 3-year-old that's going to make his 10th lifetime start in the Breeders' Cup. His last two races were powerhouse performances. He won the Dwyer, a weak edition of the Dwyer, a one-turn mile with a 101 buyer. And then he won the big race for 3-year-old sprinters in North America, the H. Allen Jerkins at 7/8, where Domestic Product sat off a fast pace and steamrolled him to the tune of a 106 buyer. A 2-turn dirt mile just looks like it's going to hit him right between the eyes.
I think it does too. This is a good field that he's beaten too, Dan. A good field. He got a good trip in this race because they were going in front of him, but these are two really, really good 3-year-old sprinters who he's fighting his way past in the late stages here. Really good performance. It's really, really unfortunate we're not going to see him again as a 4-year-old, because this horse is good. He has a chance to get better. But I guess if he shows up with his A race at Breeders' Cup Day, he's going to be a handful.
The Saudi Crown is one of the X factors in this race. He is certainly talented enough to win. He won last year's Pennsylvania Derby. He just missed in the Saudi Cup earlier this year. He was terrible in the Godolphin Mile earlier this year as a big favorite. It took Brad Cox a while to get him back to the races. They found a perfect spot for him at Ellis Park, and he went to the lead and made that weaker field pay. He's missed some time since that race with an issue. It looks like Brad's going to have him ready to go. He does have speed. He does have back class and ability. This is a situation you have to trust the trainer, right?
Yeah, I think you do. We were talking about Skippy Longstock and maybe applying some early pressure here to National Treasure. That could certainly be the case for Saudi Crown too. This is a fast horse, and he likes to be forward. I'll be honest, Dan. He was obviously good as a 3-year-old. I was never sure how good I thought he was. He certainly ran some really good races. If I'm being honest, I wasn't totally sold on him. But this horse is clearly good. He's got speed. He's going to come into this race a little bit fresh with only one sort of recent start. He's a pretty interesting horse. I'll be interested to see what kind of price he goes off at.
Let's take a look at 6 through 10 on our daily racing form rankings. Head on over to drf.com/Breeders' Cup for all the latest news and notes on the Dirt Mile and all of the pre-entries for the race. Post Time is a very likable horse trained by Brittany Russell. No match, however, for National Treasure in the Met Mile at Saratoga. Ran just fine when third, finishing ahead of National Treasure in the Whitney when he tried to stretch his ability 1 1/8. And then Brittany decided to take the path of least resistance. They decided not to go to Parks for that 2-turn Parks Dirt Mile. Instead ran in the 1-turn Polynesian where he pretty much had to fall down to lose. He didn't fall down. He won by 1 million.
So this is a real good horse. And I still feel like he might be a little underrated on the way into the Breeders' Cup. Maybe you can answer this question better than I can then. Is 1 turn, more to his liking than 2? I guess that's an argument that could be had. It seems like he does handle 2 turns, though. And I'll be honest, in the Met Mile, was he no match for National Treasure? Yeah, he was no match in there. He also had no chance in that race, the way that it was run.
And he should get a lot more pace. I think the jury's still out as to whether 2 turns and 1 turn are really going to make a difference. I don't think it will. I think he proved that in the Whitney going 1 1/8. He's only raced twice, really, around 1.5 for 2 turns. Let's talk a little bit about Full Serrano. This is a horse who earned a 99 Beyer speed figure last time out, Mike. He's another one that's still a little bit of an X factor. He set the pace in the Pacific Classic. He went very fast that day, and he was run down late by a big long shot. I'm not sure how to analyze that race.
Yeah, me either. And he's another one, too, where the running style just seems like it makes his job that much tougher. If they're going to try to be part of this pace, he just might pay the price. Neither of his first 2 starts, in my opinion, give him much of a chance in this race. But we'll see, how much more he has to offer. And maybe he just ultimately wants to go shorter. This mile might be perfect for him.
Could be a similar situation for Seize the Gray, who won the Preakness this year, which means we'll have the last 2 winners of the Preakness in National Treasure and Seize the Gray in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He's at his best when he gets to the front, as we saw in the Preakness, as we saw in the Pennsylvania Derby. I'm not sure he's as fast as National Treasure.
I don't think that he is. The good news for him is he also happened to, I think, run really well in the Pate Mile, which was a fast-paced race where he was able to run without the lead in there. He was never far away from it, Dan, but he wasn't on the lead there. He held his position and still had a pretty good finish in there. So that would give you some hope that he could sit a trip in this race. He's another one. He's actually a pretty underrated 3-year-old.
Tumbarumba is a questionable participant. I believe they have him entered at the Fayette at Keeneland this weekend. 3 Technique is a likable horse. I think a 1-turn mile is better for him, however, and I'm just not sure how he classes up against the truly big guns.
I agree. I mean, I'm a huge 3 Technique fan, but I wouldn't bet him in this race.
Nice matchup this year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. We'll see if National Treasure can get back on the beam. He's currently the 4-1 preliminary morning line favorite on DRF Bradfree's morning line. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like and subscribe button below for more great DRF content, including Race of the Days, stakes previews, and lots more. You can find it right here.